NPF is back. The question is, in what capacity will he be playing for this team? And I know that you were there on Monday, the press conference with Vrabel. He was asked about Chris Hubbard, who'd been filling in there, has been filling in there at the right tackle spot. NPF comes back. A lot of people, there's some retconning going on here. I personally think that NPF is going to get this job back sooner or later. People have been asking me, well, are we sure it was even his job to begin with? Yes, it was. Like, they brought in Chris Hubbard once they knew that NPF was going to be suspended. Hubbard's filled in admirably. Don't get me wrong. I do think that people are the bigotry of low expectations here. Everybody's expectations for him were so low coming in that because he hasn't been a complete and utter disaster, and the guy on the opposite side of him has been an unmitigated disaster, he's been getting away with a little bit more love, in my opinion, than is warranted. He's been fine, but he's needed a lot of help, and he's been one of the weaker links on this offensive line, Chris Hubbard, that is. What do you think we see from MPF and when?
So, I mean, yeah, the hope is that he's out there practicing. I think the Titans are kind of blind at this point as to what NPF is going to look like. They haven't seen him since training camp. So that was kind of Mike Vrabel's. I was surprised with Mike Vrabel's response.
Well, no, hang on. Wasn't he cleared to return to meet? He just couldn't practice last week. So they haven't seen him in action, right? He was in meetings and in the weight room.
He has not been on the practice field since training camp.
Okay.
And I was a little bit surprised with Mike Vrabel's response. I was expecting, a little bit of like, yeah, going to be great to get Nick back out there. We're excited to see, see how he's come along. Have full faith that he's been putting in work, kind of how he talks about Kevin Byard or guys like that when they're away. Yep. He was like, yeah, they made their decision. I like how Chris Hubbard has played. That was a little surprising to me. And so I think they're kind of going in blind, not knowing what NPF is going to look like. And I am a little bit more on the other side of the coin than you, I think, with this, where I don't believe this is NPF's job. I think he's probably the favorite to win the job because he's the younger guy with the draft pick that, the upside to be their guy of the future. So there is more reason to give him stuff like opportunities over there. But I do think if Mike Vrabel's happy with Chris Hubbard, they're going to stick with Chris Hubbard. I don't think he wants to rock this boat too much on the offensive line if somebody is, playing well. And so I think the biggest question becomes
but do you think he's playing well? That's what it seems like we fundamentally disagree. I don't think he's playing well. I think
he's been fine. Like you said, I think fine, but fine is about as good as NPF was last year. He was fine
down the back half of the stretch. Yeah, 100%.
And so I do think there was a slight misconception with NPF's play as a rookie too, where there was this idea that he was some he's write him in pen as your right tackle.
Through about 6 weeks, that's what it was, and it was fair, and then it all came crumbling down.
Correct. Right? So I don't know, man. I think they're going to have to just stick with what works. And there is some sort of feeling that that offensive line played pretty well against Cincinnati. And if you feel like they're starting to get some momentum.
I hate to be that guy, but pretty well, it played well enough. Can we say well enough?
I'll say well enough.
Okay.
I'm okay with well enough. I think they're okay with well enough.
It felt like it was barely good enough to be like it was good enough for the offense to be great. And the offense was great, but you're not getting that level of offensive output with any 5% less from the offensive line. They allowed 3 sacks. They allowed nearly
Do we really think
double-digit pressures.
I look the left side. I look at Dillard and Dylan Radins, and I say, what do we got going on over there?
No, that's fair. Maybe we're looking in the wrong direction. Totally a fair point.
So I don't know, man. I think, if the head coach likes Chris Hubbard right now, I think he's the least of your problems. And so I think NPF is in the same, this is not Taylor Lewan coming back from a knee injury, popping back, and you're just you got to get him in there. Get out there, Taylor. I think Nick has to earn this as much as he would as he was a rookie or somebody else trying to fight for a job. Now, it's nice that if Hubbard struggles and there's seemingly problems going on, you have a guy like NPF that, is ready, available. The other question is do you throw him at left tackle? I don't. I don't think so. Because he hasn't done it, but like,
I don't know if you're familiar with my personal like campaign since March on the well before Peter Skoronski was ever a Titan. Let the man cook outside, give him a shot.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
Yes.
I mean, I think
okay. So have you been on that boat as well? Because before he was ever a Titan, I'm like, he deserves a shot. Look at the tape. Dude was cooking in college. I'm not saying it'll work, but I'm saying it might. You got to try it.
I was in the damn trenches fighting.
Okay, all right. You were in there fighting with me. I appreciate it.
Draft night, I was in the trenches, like talking Titans fans off the ledge, being like, guys, I promise Peter Skoronski's a good player. I don't care that they didn't take Hendon Hooker at 11 overall. I promise you it's okay. We didn't need Jackson Smith and Jigba right here. So yeah, I think
he's looked great so far, by the way.
Skoronski can play anywhere. And if I have my own theories about what they were doing with the whole Dillard and Skoronski situation and why he ended up inside at guard. But I think moving forward, he's a left tackle.
Okay, fair. I think that's all fair. And I did find that answer from Vrabel pretty surprising and a little bit coy. It felt like
it was not. You have to say it wasn't like. Sometimes it's like, hey, so and so's come back. He's like, yep, it's gonna be good to have him out there. Like, excited to have him back. It's gonna be. It was kind of a question about NPF where he goes.
I know.
I
like a guy like Kyle Phillips. I feel like if we asked him tomorrow, Kyle Phillips coming back, he'd be like, we're excited to have Kyle back. Can't wait for him to get out there, be an impact on the team. With NPF, none of that love, none of that warmness.
I like how Chris Hubbard's playing.
and to your point, it isn't like a Lil Juan coming back. That actually though is kind of the crux of my argument for getting MPF in there, because I do see MPF as the only guy that the fundamental thesis here is you really can't be viable in the NFL with two bad tackles. You can have one bad tackle and you can plug that hole, but you can't do it on both ends. And MPF feels to me like, and this is going on the assumption that they're going to be hard-headed about Dillard and stick with him as long as they possibly can, which maybe they won't, but do we really have reason to believe that they won't? Just go to week 15 before they take a shot with somebody else. Do you see any world in which, unless it's truly like he's allowing 4 or 5 sacks every game, they move off of Dillard at left tackle anytime soon?
Yes.
You do.
And I didn't think I would, but yes, I do. I don't know what the threshold is or what the standard is there.
Okay. Maybe like a bye week switch out or something.
I think the Titans brass put too much into this roster being a contender for one man to be their detriment here. And so I think,
couldn't you say the same about last year though? Like, what's the difference? What's the difference with how they stuck with Daly?
I don't think they had another option. I mean, like their only other guy last year was LaRaven Clark. Like they were fresh out of options. And I think there is more potential to try a Dylan Radins, Peter Skoronski.
I mean, Radins existed last year.
Chris Hubbard.
They finally put him in there and then he tore his ACL.
I mean, there's 5 guys, right? I mean, Hubbard, Murray, Skoronski, Radin, like there's a number of guys you could throw at left tackle.
You've got a full bullpen now. This is true. There's a full bullpen.
And I also think there's part of it where you might want to see what you have in some of these younger guys before you get to the offseason and have to see if you need to draft a left tackle or sign a left tackle. Like if Peter Skoronski is going to be your future left tackle, maybe see him out there for a game or two. Or what is Dylan Radins on this team moving forward, being a former second-round draft pick that, hasn't played a ton of tackle before? Is he a tackle? Can Nicholas Petit-Frere move to the left side eventually, or is he right side only? Those might be questions they want answered. And I think if they hit a point where the patience with Dillard is up because they know, all right, we can't mess around with this anymore. We need to win, and we need to win now and try anything. I could see a scenario where it is. I think it's more likely than last year's deal with Dennis Daly, just because I think like the options are more plentiful behind the starter. Like last year, I mean, LaRaven Clark, woof. I mean, that was your second best left tackle option.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair.